Every time I meet with someone who's coming to Colorado Springs for the first time from out of state, I tend to hear the same questions over and over again. So today I wanted to share with you the top 10 things that surprise transplants the most about Colorado Springs houses. Number 1 is the radon. This is something maybe you've never even heard of before, or maybe it's not even on your radar. But radon is a colorless, odorless, radioactive gas that is naturally released from the soil and from the rocks. And it's really common here in Colorado Springs. And if your levels are high, you're going to need a mitigation system. So luckily, a lot of the newer houses are already coming with a passive mitigation system installed in the basement. So if you find out that you have high levels, all you have to do is hook up a fan and you're good to go. However, if you're buying a house that's a little bit older and doesn't already have the system set up, you are going to need to set it up from scratch, and that can cost as much as around $4,000. Now, the difficult thing is when you're buying a house, you are not really going to know what the radon level is because it fluctuates so much. So radon levels are calculated based on a 30-day average. And if you're just taking a one-time test because you're buying the house, you're not going to know what it's like when it's raining versus when the weather is dry. In my case, we have a sensor in our house, and when it's raining, the radon level spikes quite a bit. And then when it's dry, the radon level comes down. If you are someone who wants to test your radon levels and get that 30-day average, I will leave a link to the one that I use down below. Number 2 is the driveway direction. Now, if you're someone who's coming from a climate that does not get very much snow, this is probably something that you have never considered before. But here in Colorado Springs, if you're buying a house with a south-facing driveway, the sun is going to come up and over your driveway, and it's going to melt that snow really quickly, and it's going to evaporate any water that's there, so your driveway is going to be clear all winter long. If you're buying a house with a north-facing driveway, the shadow from your house is going to be sitting over your driveway, and your driveway is not going to be melting very much. So what happens is it might melt a little bit, but that pool of water is still sitting there, and it's going to refreeze at night, and it's going to cause sheets of ice to form. Now, all you have to do if you're buying a north-facing house is stay on top of it while that snow is still light and fluffy and dusty. Get it off of there before it turns into an ice skating rink. What's great about north-facing houses, though, is that even though the driveway is going to be shaded and icy and cold, your backyard is warm and sunny and beautiful all winter long. Versus someone with a south-facing driveway, you're not going to have to deal with the snow, but your backyard is going to be cold and icy. So that's something that comes down to preference. It's just something that you can keep in mind so that you're not surprised when you end up with an icy driveway in the winter. Number 3 is snow accumulation can vary quite a bit between the north end of the metro and the south end of the metro. So the south end of the metro that's down by Fountain is 5,500 feet elevation, and the north end up by Black Forest is 7,800 feet elevation. So that 2,300 foot difference leads to a difference of 80 inches of snow per year between the north end and the south end of town, with Black Forest getting 100 inches of snow per year and Fountain getting just 21 inches. So if you're someone who doesn't like the snow very much, then just look at an elevation map and stick with the lower elevation parts of town. And number 4 is PCS season. So if you're someone that doesn't have a lot of experience with the military, PCS stands for Permanent Change of Station. And this happens between the months of May and August. So during this time, because there's so many military people here, it really has a big effect on the housing market. You're going to see both that during this time of year, you're going to have the most options because of people moving out, but you're also going to have the most competition because of people moving in. In other places around the country, the spring season tends to be like the hottest season of the year, but here in Colorado Springs, it's in the summer. Number 5 is the farm fences. So you're going to see this with almost every house that's been built in the last 20 years, especially if it's in an HOA. When I first moved here, I thought it was a little bit weird that you're driving around and you can just see straight into people's backyards. But the longer I've been here, it's really grown on me. I think there are pros and cons to it. The pros, I think it is aesthetic. It makes it look nice. I think that it makes the neighborhood look more open and spacious. But a con is obviously that you don't have any privacy. Every time you go out in your backyard, you're going to be waving to your neighbor. But if that's not what you're looking for, if privacy is the most important part, you might want to consider neighborhoods that are a little bit older and that were not built in an HOA. Number 6 is there are no pools here. Like, individual houses just do not have pools. I think I've seen one for the entire time that I've been here. And the other thing is that there's just not a lot of community pools here either. This is a big complaint that most people have about the city as a whole. The access to pools is just not there. If you're someone who enjoys going swimming, you're going to want to either join a country club or move into an HOA that has a pool. Even within HOAs, there's not a ton of them that have pools. The ones I can think of that are bigger HOAs would be like Wolf Ranch, Cordera, The Farm, and Banning Lewis Ranch, and there are a few others that have pools also, but they just are kind of few and far between. Number 7 is the lack of air conditioning. So if you're buying a house that's new, they are putting air conditionings in new houses, but you do have to pay extra for it. If you're buying a house that is older than the past few years, it probably is not going to have an air conditioning. Now, it's okay, I think, living here without an air conditioning. My house doesn't have one, and I've been okay. Here, the temperature really doesn't get above 85 degrees very often, and it's a dry heat, and so as long as you have the fans going, there's also usually a lot of breeze, and so between those things, it's okay, but I still think it's probably ideal to get a house with an air conditioning. Number 8 is basements. So almost every house here has a basement, which is something that I am not used to coming from the West Coast. Basements are not very common. So here, because the houses have basements, they tend to be a lot larger. Most houses are around 5,000 square feet. And they can also be quite tall. So your house here might be 3 or even 4 levels tall, including the basement, which, because of that additional square footage, the houses that have basements can also be a little bit more expensive. So let's talk about the different types of basements that you're going to find in Colorado Springs. The first one is the walkout basement, which is kind of self-explanatory. It has a door leading you out into the backyard, so it's a walkout. And these basements are great because they bring in a lot of sunlight, they have easy access to the yard, but they are going to be the most expensive. The second type of basement is what you might know as a daylight basement, but here we call it a garden level basement. And this is a lot like a walkout, but the difference is that there's no door for you to actually walk out. So you're getting the sunlight coming in through the window from the basement being half above ground, but you're not able to access the yard. What's great about this is that you get the sunlight, but it's a little bit more affordable. The third type of basement is the full basement, and this is completely underground. You do have a window cut out for a fire escape, so you are getting a little bit of light, but not as much as the other types of basements. And what's nice about these is that they provide more privacy, and they are the more affordable option. The last type of basement that you'll see here is the unfinished basement. The basement is just used as a storage area, and so it is nice to have some extra storage, and these are going to be your most affordable option. Now, one caveat about the unfinished basements, for me, coming from an area where we don't have basements, not having a basement, it doesn't really bother me. But I have noticed that people here in Colorado Springs expect a basement because they are so common here. And so I have heard comments from people being frustrated about not having a finished basement, and I also see that these types of houses sit on the market a lot longer than other types. And number 9 is the landscaping. So Colorado Springs is a high desert with a semi-arid climate, and there's just not a lot of water here. So you're not going to find like really big, lush gardens here very often. What you're going to find here is something called xeriscaping, and xeriscaping uses a lot of rocks and native plants. And so part of the reason for this is because Colorado Springs has certain times of the day that you can actually even water your lawn. So between May 1st and October 15th, you can only water your lawn 3 days a week between 6 p.m. and 10 a.m. So just because of that lack of water, it doesn't leave us with too many options. Something else that you're going to notice about the landscape here is that the trees are really short. And again, this is a combination of just being at such a high altitude and not having a lot of water. And the last thing that people comment on is the stucco housing. There are quite a few houses here, especially on the north end, that are more that Mediterranean stucco style that maybe you haven't seen a lot of depending on where you're coming from. This style is both to meet the aesthetic of the area and also because stucco does really well in our hot and dry climate. So that's the list. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Also, please make sure to join our Facebook group, Colorado Springs Transplants, and like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.